When someone is jealous of you, one of the most common signs is how they downplay your achievements. It's not always obvious, but if you pay close attention to the way certain people react to your success, you might notice subtle changes in their behavior. Instead of celebrating with you or acknowledging your hard work, they make an effort to minimize what you've accomplished. This might come across in various ways, but the core intention behind it is always the same: to reduce the significance of your achievement in their own mind or in the minds of others. They want to make it seem like your success isn't all that impressive or that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. One way they might do this is by brushing off your accomplishments as if they were nothing special. For example, if you got a promotion at work, they might say, well, that was just luck, or anyone could have gotten that position. Even if the promotion was hard earned and you've worked tirelessly for it, they may act as though it wasn't a big deal. In the case of a personal achievement, such as completing a marathon or mastering a new skill, they might quickly turn the conversation to something else or suggest that it wasn't as difficult as you made it out to be. This tactic is a way for them to protect themselves from the discomfort of feeling inferior, so they try to convince themselves and you that your success isn't worth celebrating. Sometimes this behavior can be more covert. They might not outright dismiss your achievement, but they'll shift the focus to someone else's success in a way that subtly compares it to yours. For instance, if you were praised for a project at work, they might highlight how much better a colleague's project was, even if it wasn't. By doing this, they indirectly suggest that your success isn't as important as someone else's. And this comparison works to lower the value of your accomplishment in the conversation. It's an attempt to keep you from feeling too good about yourself because they cannot bear to see you thriving. Another form of downplaying your achievements happens when they act disinterested in what you're sharing. For instance, when you excitedly talk about something you've worked hard for, like finishing a degree, landing a big client, or even just achieving a personal goal, they may appear disinterested, distracted, or dismissive. They might quickly change the subject or give a vague, non-committal response like, "Oh, that's nice," or "good for you," without engaging further. This behavior often stems from jealousy because deep down they feel threatened by your progress. Rather than celebrating with you, they react with indifference because they don't know how to deal with your success without feeling inadequate. Some individuals may also use humor as a way to downplay your achievements. They might make sarcastic comments or lighthearted jokes about your success, but the underlying tone is one of mockery. For example, they might say something like, "Wow, guess you're now too good for us, huh?" Or, "Did you hire a coach to get there, or was it all natural talent?" These jokes are often a shield for their own insecurity. They want to appear unaffected, even though the truth is that they feel deeply envious of what you've achieved. The use of humor in this context is usually a defense mechanism to mask the negative feelings they're struggling with. This type of behavior can sometimes be rooted in a desire to control how others perceive you. When someone is jealous, they may fear that your success will overshadow their own. They might try to make you feel like your achievements aren't as impressive to others, hoping to maintain their own sense of self-worth. It's a subtle way for them to keep themselves in the spotlight, ensuring that your success doesn't make them feel invisible or less important. They want to make sure that their own worth is not being challenged, so they act as though your accomplishments don't matter in the grand scheme of things. Over time, these small acts of downplaying can have an emotional impact. You may begin to feel like your successes are not as valuable, or that sharing your achievements with others isn't worth the effort. It can even make you second guess whether you're truly worthy of the praise you receive. However, it's important to remember that this behavior reflects more about the other person's insecurities than it does about your abilities or accomplishments. Their effort to minimize your achievements doesn't take away from what you've worked hard for or the growth you've experienced. In fact, it's often a sign that you've achieved something truly remarkable, something that has made them feel uncomfortable with their own position. In these moments, it's essential to trust in your own journey and to recognize that their reaction is a reflection of their own feelings, not yours. When someone downplays your achievements, it's a clear sign that they might be struggling with their own sense of self-worth. Instead of allowing their comments to diminish your sense of accomplishment, take it as a reminder that you are doing something right. Your success might be triggering something in them that they're not ready to face, but that doesn't make it any less valid or worthy of recognition. The key is to continue moving forward and embracing your successes with pride, regardless of how others might respond. So, if you ever find someone trying to downplay your achievements, recognize it for what it is: a reflection of their own jealousy and insecurity. Keep celebrating yourself because your hard work and dedication deserve to be acknowledged. Another telling sign that someone is jealous of you is when they begin to imitate your actions, appearance, or style. It's often a subtle form of flattery, but it can also be a clear indicator of envy. When a person admires something about you, whether it's your sense of humor, the way you dress, or the way you approach your work, they might attempt to mirror those behaviors or traits in an effort to capture some of the same attention or success that you've earned. It may seem harmless at first, but the intent behind these imitations often speaks volumes about the jealousy they feel. One of the most common ways this manifests is through physical appearance. If someone is jealous of the way you look or present yourself, they may start to alter their own style to resemble yours. For example, if you've been complimented for your fashion choices or the way you carry yourself, they might start showing up with similar outfits or accessories trying to emulate your signature style. This imitation might not be an exact copy, but it will clearly reflect aspects of your look, whether it's the same color scheme, a similar hairstyle, or the way you accessorize. The motivation behind this can be complicated. On one hand, they might genuinely admire your style, but on the other hand, they may want to capture some of the attention and approval you receive for it. Similarly, when it comes to your behaviors or mannerisms, someone who is jealous of you may begin copying your actions. If you're known for being confident in meetings, they might start speaking up more often or adopting a similar approach to problem solving. If you've developed a specific routine that you're proud of, such as a fitness regimen or a particular method for tackling your daily tasks, they might try to follow suit. They might incite each other during interpersonal matters. When in doubt, ask each other what the... It's important to note that imitation in itself isn't always a negative thing, as people sometimes admire and want to learn from others. But when the motivation is rooted in jealousy, this mimicry is often done in an attempt to undermine your uniqueness or to somehow prove that they can do things just as well as you can. The imitation often extends beyond just looks and actions. It can even stretch to your ideas and opinions. Jealous people might take what you say and claim it as their own, using your ideas or perspectives as if they had come up with them independently. This can happen in both personal and professional settings. For instance, if you've shared an innovative idea with a colleague or a friend, and they later present that same idea in a conversation without giving you credit, it may be a sign that they are envious of the attention you received for that idea. In more extreme cases, they might go so far as to take credit for your hard work, trying to convince others that they were the ones who came up with the brilliant solution or approach. What's tricky about this behavior is that it often appears to be harmless. The person copying you might genuinely believe they are simply emulating what they see as admirable traits or habits. However, underneath this surface-level admiration lies a desire to be seen as similar to you, or even better. Jealousy doesn't always have to manifest in negative, aggressive ways. It can also show up as subtle attempts to copy or replicate what you've done, as if they're trying to compete with you in a more indirect, less confrontational manner. They may think that by imitating you, they can somehow feel closer to the success or attention you have, or even receive validation from others in the same way you do. This imitation can also show up in social settings, especially when it comes to the way others react to you. If you're known for being well-liked or having a certain social magnetism, someone who feels jealous of you may begin acting in similar ways to gain the same attention. They may mimic your tone of voice, your body language, or your approach to engaging with others, hoping to replicate the same positive reactions you receive. While it might seem like they're simply trying to fit in, it can actually be a sign that they are trying to steal some of your spotlight. They want to feel as though they are just as charming or likable, and will go to great lengths to imitate your social interactions to create a similar effect. At its core, this type of behavior stems from a lack of self-assurance and an intense desire to be recognized in the same way you are. Instead of embracing their own individuality, they may feel more comfortable in the shadow of your accomplishments and traits. By mimicking your behaviors, they hope to be seen as equally capable or impressive without having to put in the same amount of effort or originality. For you, the person being imitated, it can be a confusing and sometimes frustrating experience. At first, it may not even seem like a big deal. After all, who wouldn't want to be admired? But when it becomes clear that the person imitating you is doing so in a way that erases your uniqueness, it can feel like your identity is being borrowed or diminished. You might start questioning whether the person is genuinely admiring you or if they are simply trying to gain the same recognition or approval you've worked hard for. It's important to keep in mind that while imitation can be flattering, when it's driven by jealousy, it is a sign that they are trying to compete with you, even in subtle and unspoken ways. Ultimately, when someone imitates you out of jealousy, it reveals that they see something in you that they wish they had for themselves. Rather than seeing this as an attack, try to recognize it as a reflection of their own insecurities. It's not a matter of you being less important, it's that they feel threatened by your uniqueness. While it can be uncomfortable to see others mimic your style or ideas, remember that your individuality and the things that make you stand out will always be your strongest assets. When someone is jealous of you, one of the most telling signs is how they criticize you behind your back. It's a behavior that often comes in the form of passive-aggressive remarks or backhanded compliments. But it can also show up as direct negative comments made about you when you're not around. Jealousy can trigger a deep-seated insecurity, and for many people, tearing others down becomes a way of coping with their own feelings of inadequacy. Instead of dealing with their envy in a healthy way, they deflect their negative emotions by putting you down to others, hoping that it will somehow elevate their own sense of self-worth. The criticism can start subtly with comments that seem harmless at first, but over time, these remarks build up and begin to reveal the true nature of their feelings. For example, they might casually make a comment about your success, like, "It must be nice to have everything handed to you." Or, "I bet that promotion had more to do with luck than skill." While these comments may seem like lighthearted jabs, they often carry a deeper layer of resentment. Jealous people may disguise their envy as casual observation, but if you listen closely, the underlying tone is one of bitterness and jealousy. In a work setting, someone who is jealous of you might criticize your work or question your abilities, even if you've consistently demonstrated your competence. They may highlight small mistakes you've made in an attempt to make them seem like larger issues, or they might even downplay the quality of your work altogether. For instance, if you've received praise from a boss or colleague, they might say, "I don't see what's so great about that project," or "I could have done that in half the time." These types of criticisms aren't necessarily aimed at improving your work. They're an attempt to make you feel like your success is undeserved or unremarkable. The goal is to diminish your achievements in the eyes of others, hoping that if they manage to discredit you, they'll feel better about themselves. Sometimes, this criticism can be more subtle, disguised as concern or advice. A jealous person might offer you unsolicited guidance or try to suggest ways you could improve when they haven't been asked for their opinion. They may say things like, "I don't know if that's the best way to go about it," or "Maybe you should try doing things a little differently, like so-and-so does." While the comment might seem helpful on the surface, it's really just a veiled attempt to undermine your confidence and make you doubt your own choices. These remarks serve as a reminder to the jealous person that they feel threatened by your success or your abilities, and they want to influence how others perceive you. In social settings, the criticism might take on a more personal tone, attacking your character or your relationships. A jealous individual may make negative comments about your friends, your family, or the way you conduct yourself in your personal life. For example, they might say things like, "I don't know why you hang out with that group, they're not really your type," or "You always seem to be the one who gets all the attention at parties." These types of comments can be hurtful because they target your personal choices and relationships, aiming to make you question your social standing or your worth as a person. At its core, the criticism from someone who is jealous isn't about you, it's about them. Their own insecurities drive them to tear you down in order to feel better about themselves. By pointing out what they perceive as your flaws or shortcomings, they hope to make themselves feel less inferior. They may feel like their own achievements, looks, or abilities pale in comparison to yours, and instead of addressing these feelings head on, they choose to deflect by belittling you. This behavior often comes from a place of deep-rooted envy, and it's their way of coping with feelings of inadequacy that they don't know how to confront. It's important to understand that this criticism is not a reflection of your worth or value, it's a reflection of their struggles. Jealousy can make people act in irrational and hurtful ways, especially when they're too focused on comparing themselves to others. The more successful, confident, or accomplished you become, the more they may feel threatened, and so they lash out with criticism to try and diminish the impact of your success. This is their way of coping with their feelings of jealousy, even though it only makes them appear insecure and petty in the eyes of others. However, the damage that this kind of criticism can cause shouldn't be underestimated. It can make you doubt especially if it's coming from someone you trust or care about. It can erode your confidence and create self-doubt, leading you to question whether your accomplishments are truly worthwhile. In extreme cases, if the jealousy is left unchecked, it can cause emotional strain in your relationships, creating a toxic environment where trust and support are compromised. When you encounter criticism of this nature, it's crucial to recognize it for what it is, a reflection of their own insecurities and not a legitimate judgment of your worth. Jealousy often fuels criticism that's based on assumptions rather than facts. Rather than internalizing the criticism, try to distance yourself from it and remind yourself of the hard work and effort that led to your achievements. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your success and offer constructive feedback when needed, rather than those who seek to tear you down. Ultimately, criticism from a jealous person is a sign that you're doing something right. People who are confident in their own abilities don't feel the need to criticize others in a passive-aggressive or backhanded way. Instead of allowing their criticism to affect you, use it as a reminder that your progress and success are causing ripples, sometimes even in unexpected places. And as difficult as it might be to deal with, the best response is to continue on your path with grace and confidence, knowing that their words come from a place of jealousy, not truth. One of the most striking signs that someone may be jealous of you is how they focus on your failures or mistakes while ignoring your successes. When you've worked hard to achieve something, it can be incredibly disheartening to have someone constantly highlight your slip-up, no matter how small they may be. Jealousy often manifests in this behavior because it gives the jealous person a sense of control or superiority. They may try to magnify your flaws and shortcomings in an attempt to diminish your achievements and bring you down to their level, or perhaps even below it. While they might not celebrate your triumphs, they eagerly pounce on any opportunity to point out where you faltered. It's a strange paradox. Jealousy often leads people to fixate on your weaknesses while glossing over your strengths. When someone is genuinely envious, they feel threatened by the things you're doing well, so they'll turn their attention to the smallest errors or failings, hoping to make those flaws appear more significant. For example, let's say you've had an amazing run of successes, whether it's a promotion at work, an academic achievement, or a personal milestone. Instead of congratulating you or sharing in your joy, a jealous person might bring up a past mistake you made, even if it was years ago. They might remind you of that time you missed a deadline or stumbled during a presentation. This behavior is aimed at invalidating your accomplishments by casting doubt on your competence or capabilities. It's an effort to create a narrative in which you are flawed or unworthy of the praise you're receiving. In some cases, the person might even exaggerate or misrepresent your mistakes. If you had a minor setback in an otherwise successful project, they may blow it out of proportion, making it seem like a larger failure than it really was. By focusing on these perceived failures, they attempt to shift the narrative, making your overall success seem less impressive or even overshadowed by these small blemishes. The idea is to distract others from your achievements and focus their attention on something that could make you appear less capable, less deserving, or less impressive. It's a way for the jealous person to feel better about their own perceived inadequacies by ensuring that others see you as flawed or imperfect too. This behavior can be particularly painful because it often comes from people you trust or expect to be supportive, like friends, family, or coworkers. You might find yourself in a situation where, after receiving positive feedback for a project or a significant accomplishment, the jealous person immediately brings up the one thing you could have done better. For instance, if you've received accolades for a report you've written at work, they might casually say, "Yeah, it was good, but I noticed a few typos," or "It could have been a little more thorough." These remarks may seem like simple suggestions for improvement, but when they're coming from someone who's envious of your success, they serve a different purpose. It's not about helping you improve, it's about diminishing the value of your work and making you feel insecure. This focus on your mistakes, especially when they're blown out of proportion, can also impact your self-confidence. Over time, you might start to second-guess your abilities, wondering if you're as competent or successful as others believe. You may become hyper aware of your flaws and errors, obsessing over them in ways that prevent you from recognizing your true worth. The jealous person, by highlighting your mistakes, creates a sense of self-doubt that can linger long after the incident has passed. They effectively try to lower your self-esteem, making you question whether you're truly deserving of your success or if you're just getting by despite your imperfections. In addition, the jealous person may even try to convince others that your failures are more significant than your accomplishments. They may subtly undermine your achievements in conversations with others, pointing out the things you could have done better or highlighting mistakes you made along the way. By doing so, they attempt to shift the narrative and paint you as less competent in the eyes of others. It's a way of ensuring that their own feelings of insecurity don't have to be confronted, as long as they can convince people around them that you're not as perfect or deserving as you seem. The more successful you become, the more likely it is that a jealous person will focus on your failures instead of celebrating your successes. They may also begin to compare your mistakes to their own, using them as a measure of how you stack up against them. For example, they might say something like, "Well, I've had my fair share of setbacks too," or "Everyone makes mistakes," as if to normalize their own shortcomings while highlighting yours. This comparison is meant to lessen the impact of your success and level the playing field in their own minds so they don't have to confront their feelings of envy. The key to recognizing this behavior is to understand that it's not about you. It's about their need to feel better about themselves. When someone repeatedly focuses on your mistakes or failures, it's a sign that they are struggling with their own feelings of inadequacy. Their jealousy is clouding their judgment, and they're using your mistakes as a way to make themselves feel more secure. Rather than celebrating your wins, they latch onto your flaws because it makes them feel like they are on equal footing with you, even if they're not truly successful themselves. If you find yourself in this situation, it's important not to internalize the criticism. Recognize that the focus on your failures isn't an accurate reflection of your abilities or worth. It's a product of someone else's jealousy. Continue to celebrate your successes, no matter how small. And remember that the jealous person's obsession with your mistakes is just their way of trying to cope with their own insecurities. Your achievements are still valid, and no amount of negative focus on your failures can change that. Another sign that someone is jealous of you is when they actively try to undermine your relationships or achievements by planting seeds of doubt in others' minds. This behavior is often subtle but effective, as the jealous person may not directly confront you with their feelings. Instead, they'll manipulate others into questioning your motives, integrity, or capabilities. It's a passive, aggressive tactic that allows them to hurt you without openly confronting you. And it can be especially difficult to spot because it often appears to be coming from a place of concern or well-meaning advice. One common way jealousy manifests is when someone tries to create distance between you and your closest relationships. They might subtly try to turn your friends, family members, or colleagues against you by saying things that make you appear less trustworthy or dependable. For example, they may casually mention, "I've noticed that they've been a little distant lately," or "I wouldn't rely too much on them if I were you," creating a sense of doubt in the minds of the people around you. This tactic works because it plays on people's insecurities and makes them question their own judgment. If someone who's jealous of you can plant even the smallest seed of doubt, they may succeed in causing friction in your relationships, leading to misunderstandings or feelings of distrust. In professional settings, this type of behavior can be particularly damaging. If someone feels envious of your success or position at work, they may try to undermine you by subtly suggesting to others that you're not as competent or deserving as they think you are. For example, they may comment, "I don't know if they really know what they're doing with that project," or "I've heard they're not as experienced as they claim." These types of comments can chip away at your reputation, creating doubt about your abilities in the eyes of your coworkers or superiors. The jealousy-driven individual might even go so far as to twist your words or actions, presenting them in a way that makes you seem unprofessional, untrustworthy, or incompetent. When someone is jealous of you, they might also try to sabotage your achievements by creating a narrative that downplays your success. For example, if you receive praise for a job well done, they may whisper to others, "I heard they had a lot of help on that," or "I'm sure that wasn't all their work." By minimizing your accomplishments, They are attempting to steal the spotlight or divert attention away from the credit you rightfully deserve. This can be especially frustrating when the jealous person knows full well the amount of hard work and effort you've put into your achievements. Their need to diminish your success stems from their inability to feel good about their own progress or abilities, and so they take pleasure in trying to erase your success. In relationships, whether romantic or platonic, jealousy can also show up as an attempt to cause division between you and your significant other or close friends. A jealous individual might try to undermine your bond by insinuating that your partner or friends don't have your best interests at heart. They might say things like, "Do you really think they're as supportive as they seem?" Or, "I've seen them act a little distant with you lately." The goal here is to create tension and doubt in your relationship, and it's so that they can either replace the people in your life or simply feel better about themselves in comparison. This kind of behavior can be deeply hurtful because it targets the people who matter most to you, and it often causes unnecessary strain in your most important connections. What's particularly insidious about this behavior is how it often goes unnoticed. The jealous person may never outright say anything negative about you directly. Instead, they'll spread rumors or suggest doubts in a way that feels innocuous. This makes it all the more difficult to confront because it's hard to prove or call out in a straightforward way. Often others might brush off these subtle jabs, not realizing that the comments are motivated by envy and malice. The jealous individual thrives on this ambiguity, knowing that their actions are difficult to pinpoint or confront. If you've experienced this kind of behavior, it can leave you feeling isolated and unsupported, as if your achievements are constantly being undermined by someone who refuses to acknowledge your worth. The emotional toll of having someone work behind the scenes to erode your relationships can be exhausting, and it can make you question whether people truly value you for who you are. What makes this even more difficult is that in many cases, the jealous person will act as if they have your best interests at heart, all while undermining you in the background. Recognizing this behavior is crucial because it allows you to protect your relationships from being influenced by jealousy. If someone in your life seems to constantly plant seeds of doubt, whether it's about your friends, your partner, or your abilities, it's important to step back and evaluate their motivations. People who genuinely care about you will support your growth and successes, not try to tear you down or create divisions in your relationships. If you sense that someone is subtly trying to undermine you, consider distancing yourself from their negativity and focusing on the relationships that lift you up. Surround yourself with people who celebrate your achievements and provide the encouragement you need, rather than those who seek to diminish your worth through whispered doubts and subtle manipulations. At the end of the day, knowing who to rely on for what, with greater expectations than you yourself, if people who are deferring to you rather than taking work from you, the distancing of your life provides an equality and an uplifting to all of you, if you call it. Jealousy is a reflection of someone else's insecurities. They may try to manipulate your relationships to make themselves feel better, but their behavior is a sign of their own struggle with feelings of inadequacy. While their attempts to undermine you can be hurtful, it's important to remember that their actions are a result of their internal conflict, not a reflection of your true value. Keep your focus on your own growth and let the people who truly care about you recognize your worth, regardless of the attempts of others to create doubt. Another telling sign of jealousy is when someone begins to mimic or copy your behavior, success, or appearance. This may seem flattering at first, as it might feel like they admire you or look up to you. However, when the imitation becomes constant or exaggerated, it often reveals a deeper sense of envy. This behavior is typically motivated by their desire to replicate what they see as your success or qualities, hoping that by copying you, they can experience a similar level of achievement or attention. It's a way for them to feel closer to what they perceive as your desirable traits without having to put in the same level of effort or work. One of the most common ways jealousy manifests in this manner is when someone starts to dress similarly to you, adopt your mannerisms, or mimic your style. They may begin to wear the same colors, accessories, or even adopt the same tone of voice in conversation, or even the same voice by choice during conversation, trying to match your appearance or behavior as closely as possible. This might seem harmless at first, but when it becomes a pattern, it's a clear sign that they want to mirror your success in some way, perhaps because they feel they are lacking something that you possess. It's not an innocent form of admiration, it's a way of feeling closer to the qualities they envy in you. This kind of behavior can extend beyond the superficial to more significant aspects of your life. For example, if you've worked hard to establish yourself in a particular career or hobby, a jealous person might begin to adopt similar interests or pursue the same path, hoping that by doing so, they will gain the same recognition or rewards that you've earned. If they see that you've achieved success in a specific field, they may try to enter that field themselves, not out of genuine passion, but to replicate your success or stature. While it's natural for people to be inspired by others, when the motivation is rooted in jealousy, the intent is often to claim some of your glory for themselves. They hope that by taking on your persona, they will somehow be able to bask in the same success and admiration that you have earned. In some cases, this copying can become quite obvious. You may notice that they begin to mimic your social media posts, your way of communicating with others, or even the types of projects or tasks you pursue. This imitation can become so blatant that it starts to feel uncomfortable. They may even take your ideas and present them as their own, hoping that others won't notice the similarities. This can be incredibly frustrating, especially if you've worked hard to carve out your own unique space or identity. The jealous person's behavior undermines your originality and can make you feel as though your hard-earned success is being stolen or diminished. The motivation behind this imitation is rooted in insecurity and a deep-seated fear of not measuring up. The jealous individual might feel like they're unable to reach your level of success or recognition on their own, so they turn to copying you in an attempt to shortcut the process. Instead of embracing their own strengths and finding their unique path, they look to you as a blueprint, thinking that by mirroring your life or actions, they'll be able to achieve similar results. It's an indirect way of expressing envy as it avoids confrontation and instead tries to replicate what they perceive as the key to your success. In more subtle cases, jealousy-driven imitation can show up in less obvious ways. For example, they might begin to adopt your opinions or beliefs, especially if they notice that your ideas are being well received by others. They may start to align themselves with the causes or topics you care about, not because they have a genuine interest, but because they see that it's something that others value in you. This is another way of trying to become you without doing the hard work to form their own authentic views. It's an attempt to claim some of your social currency or influence without putting in the effort to develop their own identity or passions. Although imitation might seem like a form of flattery, it's important to recognize it for what it really is, a reflection of jealousy and insecurity. The jealous person doesn't feel confident enough in their own abilities or identity, so they latch on to yours, hoping that by doing so, they'll gain some of the recognition or approval that you've earned. What's troubling about this behavior is that it's not just about admiration, it's about wanting to step into your shoes and take your place. They may see your success as something they can't achieve on their own, so they mimic you in an effort to shortcut the process. This kind of behavior can be emotionally draining, especially when it starts to feel like you're being followed or imitated at every turn. It can make you feel as though your individuality is being undermined and that someone is encroaching on your space. The frustration arises from the fact that the jealous individual is not willing to put in the same effort you did to achieve success. They simply want to take the easier route of copying you. This can make your accomplishments feel less genuine or less valuable, as if someone is trying to steal your identity without acknowledging the hard work that went into it. Ultimately, imitation driven by jealousy reflects a lack of self-worth and personal fulfillment in the jealous person. They are so fixated on what you have that they fail to see the value in cultivating their own unique path. While it can be unsettling to experience someone copying you, it's important to remember that their behavior speaks to their own inner struggles, not your worth. Keep focusing on your personal journey, knowing that your individuality and accomplishments are the result of your own unique path. And while their attempts at copying may be frustrating, they also serve as a reminder that your success is making an impact, even if it's not always in the most flattering ways.